there, welcome. And we wanted to talk about today, and again, brief introductions, you guys probably know already, but I'm Stephen Oliver. This is Greg Moody with the little goatee there, Mindy Godfrey, and Jeff Smith. Coming to you from high on the mountain in Evergreen, Colorado, from Arizona, from that thriving metropolis of Tulsa, Oklahoma, and from Washington, D.C. So, but what we wanted to talk about today is the 10 stupid things that financial advisors and wealth managers do to sabotage their business. And guys, we talked a lot about all of these different things, and we've had so many different conversations with so many that just don't develop their business and practice properly. But let me start out is in order to become FINRA licensed and state certified and get all of your insurance stuff under control and your Series 7, all that stuff, wealth managers, financial advisors, oftentimes end up with this alphabet soup behind their names. They're sometimes a CPA or have the fallacy like I do of an MBA, which stands for more bad answers, and or PhD piled higher and deeper. But end up with this alphabet soup of letters behind their names, and then jump into the business and never think that if I go to Harvard Law School and I learn all of the Constitution and all the histories, not once in there did they have a course on how to create new clients, how to keep clients, how to bill properly, and how to grow your legal practice. And we're in exactly the same business. And if you're attached to a big company, let's say maybe like Northwest Mutual, we've done a lot of work with Northwest Mutual people, they still don't teach you really how to grow your practice, how to find new clients, and how to develop your practice. And so what the number one fallacy is that thinking the technical knowledge of the business teaches you how to run the business. And it's absolutely not true. If I'm an MD and I open my own medical practice, I know nothing about billing. I know nothing about recruiting new patients. I know nothing about patient retention, et cetera. And almost every financial advisor that I talk to never took a course of study in marketing. They don't know much, if anything, about sales. They really have never studied online marketing, offline marketing, direct mail, any of that kind of stuff. So the number one big mistake you've got to recognize is that as soon as you go in business for yourself, is you're for now and forever in the business of marketing the service that you provide, not in the business of just providing the service. So all of that alphabet soup behind your name really doesn't impress clients. It doesn't attract new clients. It doesn't retain them. There's a level of expertise that's expected and required in order to provide the service, and they expect you to be licensed and knowledgeable and so forth. But what you have to do is recognize that you're in the business of forever and always marketing the service of financial management, marketing the service of what you do, and are constantly looking for new clients, looking to provide better service for existing clients, looking to maintain a better relationship with them. One of the best business thinkers of all time, Peter Drucker, he said the purpose of all businesses are to create and keep a client. Now, that doesn't have anything to do with the alphabet soup and all the depth of knowledge of what's going on in the market and how to interpret all that stuff. It has everything to do with really understanding what your client is and how to get out into that. Guys, what would you add to that? I ranted on for a bit there, but we see that over and over and over again. Mindy, you've talked to probably 50 advisors in the last week and a half, 2 weeks, who hardly ever have much of any of a marketing plan.
Yeah, it's so true. And if they are starting to market, it's like, well, I put an ad on Facebook or I've got an ad on LinkedIn. And it's just like a one thing, or, oh, I've sent an email asking for referrals from my current clients. And that just so doesn't really drive that new lead business for new prospects. I mean, it's just not going to generate enough to really sustain and grow your firm for the long term, just to do one small thing.
Yeah.
Certainly better than nothing, but it's not really going to get you where you want to go.
Oh, absolutely.
I think we have a lot of people looking, as Mindy just said, for the one thing. We get asked, well, what's the one thing we should do? Or what's the one or two things we should do for marketing? And that's asking the wrong question. And that's, you know, you were talking about the top 10 things that people do to sabotage their business. To me, that's really it, is they look for the one thing. And, you know, there's really, they should be doing 20 or more things to market their business on a regular basis, as you said. And that's just what any healthy business should be doing. And what we can help with is what those things are. But if you're not doing enough things, then there's not enough, you don't know which ones are going to work all the time. And there's not enough lead flow coming in so that you can comfortably, in a healthy way, get enough clients.
The
Yeah,
other thing that I think there's a big problem that most people do is they don't develop a marketing plan. It's just hit and miss. They don't develop a whole plan. And it's so critical to have not just a monthly marketing plan, but a quarterly marketing plan and an annual marketing plan. And not everybody starts off with the annual plan, but if you start off with a good monthly, then you can then develop your quarterly. And then once you get your quarterly, and once you develop your marketing plan, then what you have to do is track that marketing to see which of it is working. Sometimes people jump ship too soon on their marketing, because if they're not tracking it, they've got to look at, maybe they were fishing in the wrong pond. Were they trying to implement it the wrong way? Did they not have a good follow through system? So keeping those statistics on all your marketing, combined with having multi-tiers of marketing. I always like your Parthenon of marketing, because you've got to go, but you don't know which of those don't work in your area, or was it the way you did it didn't work? So that's why it's very good, important to have somebody else look at it that knows more about it, so they can say, well, you did the right thing, but you did it the wrong way. So keep doing this, but change this. And all of a sudden they make one little change. And I've seen your clients do that quite frequently, is then they changed the way they applied it, and all of a sudden it worked, and they went, wow. Or they were fishing in the wrong pond, because you're only as good as who you're marketing to also.
Yeah.
Jeff?
Good.
Oh, sorry, Stephen. Yeah, Jeff hit on something too, is really knowing what your results are. Because I've talked to so many people who, oh yeah, we've got that one ad out there. Oh great, how many leads did that get you? They don't know, or they don't know how many of those like how many leads that was generated, how many conversations that generated, how many discoveries, and then how many, you know, clients that actually get converted out of that. And so that's such a basic thing to be able to have to start with.
And no
Yeah,
one,
we'll get to that. That's going to be point number 3, Mindy, is know your numbers. But you're absolutely right. Jeff, go ahead.
I was going to say, and that's why when you know your numbers, you can look at your cost per, you know, so, you know, for that lead, you know, for that discovery, you know, for that, you know, when you get them signed. So it's each one of those. When you're designing your marketing and your marketing budget, you've got to know what is your return on your investment on each one of those. How much does it cost you to get that lead or get that a discovery? So
yeah, and we probably should go on to point 2 if we're going to get 10. We'll see how far we get here. But a couple quick summaries on that is, you've got to learn very quickly that if you don't learn how to market your business, don't market your expertise, then nothing happens. You know, it's certainly true that you can grow organically through a few referrals, and you know, and we'll talk more and more about referrals. We did you know, over an hour on that our last session. But what you've got to recognize is there's several components. One is you have to have a bunch of different things going on all the time, and what too many people do is they end up with one strategy. Well, I ask people for referrals, or I'm on Facebook, or I'm finding people on LinkedIn. They end up with one strategy, and then they don't have consistency of flow. They don't have the ability to ramp it up or slow it down if they need to. And if you're in a mode of you really wanted to grow your practice, you wanted to double or triple your practice, you can't do that by just hoping people are going to point you in the right direction. I've got some really bad stats that you know, I heard recently, but for want of a better way to say it, we'll get to that in a minute. It has to do with client retention and follow-up. But you've got to put together, the word you use that we use all the time is Parthenon, a whole bunch of different drivers. Some of them should be offline, some of them can be online. It could be Facebook and LinkedIn. Some people get stuck into doing just live meetings, and then they have a year like 2020 where that goes out the window. So you've got to learn how to have flexibility, to be able to do things online, to do them in person, to be able to do them remote, but to get a wide variety of different pieces going on. And the two things we see happen over and over in the marketing realm is relying on email as a primary focus, and just not, you know, thinking that referrals, or maybe referrals plus, you know, LinkedIn or Facebook are going to be adequate to drive enough traffic. And it very rarely is. And Greg, I think you mentioned, which will be one of our points, but it's looking for the magic pill. You know, you can't be looking for the magic pill. You've got to have an awful lot of different pieces going on while you stay up to date with changes in Google or Facebook or LinkedIn, or faces out, you know, changes in the market, and are able to adapt. But anyway, let's go to number two. And number two that I want to start with is, think of it this way: is, you know, we talked to, again, I could reference it back to you. You're our frontline, suffering through a lot of these conversations, Mindy. But we talked to so many advisors who we ask, who is your ideal client? And what they say is, oh, everybody should work with me. You know, everybody is a prospect. One of the, you know, the great philosophers in this industry, Nick Murray, I've read all of his stuff, but I was reading his newsletter recently, and he said exactly that. I was like, wait a minute. Okay, so there's 368 million people in the United States. And you're telling me that absolutely every one of them is a prospect for you? Well, no, that's the dumbest thing I've heard in forever. I mean, is it true that there should be better financial education in our schools, and there should be easier access to financial information? In fact, you know, probably the number one threat in our industry is the fact that financial information is so easily available between all of the robo advisors and videos on YouTube and everything in between. But no, what you want to do is start with a good friend of mine, Dan Kennedy, calls it an avatar client. What's your ideal client? If you were to pick, you know, draw your ideal client. One of my clients, Peter, you know, that's the first thing we did is I sat down and said, who's your ideal client? He goes, what do you mean? Well, somebody with money. Well, let's hone it in a little bit more than that. What would be your ideal? Well, in his case, it was business owner, $1 million business to $10 million business with several executives, so he could do executive planning. He fits well with that person and that niche. So you want to really hone in on who is your ideal client. Who is it you want? And Jeff, you used the term a minute ago, fishing in the right pond. I mean, you know, you could probably round up plenty of clients by, you know, knocking on doors in trailer parks and in government subsidized housing. You're not going to build your AUM very fast doing that. What would you guys add to that?
Well, I think you said it really well, and I think that now with virtual, you know, a lot of people are used to virtual conversations, kind of like what we're having now. Your ideal client can be a little bit expanded geographically. A lot of times we see the flip side of that is a lot of advisors are really limited. They say, well, we can only have people in this small geographic area, and that may change a little bit. So if you want clients that are have the potential to increase your AUM a lot higher, a lot faster, you have a lot more opportunity now. In a lot of times that we see advisors limiting themselves, they think that, well, they've got to go after everybody. So because, you know, they don't have enough clients, so they go after everybody. So that's the way to get more clients. But really, if you stay focused on a particular niche, then you can make your marketing work better for that particular niche. And then you'll get, in the end, really more clients, even though it's maybe a smaller group. So as Jeff said, fishing in the right pond works better because you're more focused on the kind of fish you want to get.
Yeah. Like one of the things I always do is I, you know, first sit down and say, let's look at your clients that you have now. You know, who is it you have? Who are your good clients? If you separate them out, you know, A, B, C clients, who are your A clients? What is their profile? What is it that makes them A clients? Where did they come from? What are they doing? And oftentimes by looking through that, you find a natural skew. You know, maybe you have a bunch of surgeons, or you have a bunch of car enthusiasts, or you have people who are in the tech industry. But I rarely see anyone who really exploits that niche that they already have subconsciously developed. I mean, Jeff, you and I are into motorcycles, right? We have the Harley BMW debate. But I mean, if you were the guy that was in that niche, as we know, there's an awful lot of rich orthodontists, you know, who put their Harley gear. That movie Wild Hogs wasn't too far off. Who put on their Harley gear on the weekends. But you got to find, you know, what it is you are and who it is you want to target. Get that ideal client. Get the client that you're going to resonate with, and then go from there. The other thing about again, pull that term you used a minute ago, Jeff, fishing the right pond. The other thing about fishing the right pond is, you know, obviously, you know, you want to have people who have assets, and you want to have people who are interested in growing, who are interested in advice, are interested in getting that support. And so you'd want to basically, when you look at any particular market, what's more important are the ones that you don't go after than the ones you do. It's you know, it's kind of like Steve Jobs' old quote. They, you know, ask him what he was most proud of in developing Apple, and he said, "Well, I'm most proud of all the stuff that we didn't do, all the stuff that we cut out, and the ability to focus on excellence in a small area." Well, that'll multiply your results dramatically by picking that ideal target avatar, if you want to use that term, but that ideal target client, figuring out who you want to be and how you want to be positioned behind the scenes. You know, my kind of derisive comment is that, you know, all financial advisor marketing seems to be the guy in the JCPenney suit sitting behind the oak desk in a generic beige office, right? I got to tell you, in today's day and age, that's not what sells. What sells is being unique, being idiosyncratic, having a strong personality, and having something where some people are going to be repelled. Perhaps many people are going to be repelled, but a lot of other people are going to be tightly attracted. Guys, anything to add to that before we?
One thing that I would say on that, you know, I agree with you, Stephen, that the most important thing is to have that right pond to be fishing in. But once they do that, I see some people are fishing in the right pond, but they're not looking and tracking their marketing to know how to tweak it to capture the lead. Because even if we're fishing in the right pond, if we don't have the right ad or the right, we're not saying the right words, you know, sometimes you just messed up on your ad. So it's important to track it, see what kind of response you're getting. But, you know, you're right. Most people fish in the wrong pond. It wasn't their ad. So you've really got to decide, was it my ad or was it the pond I was fishing in? And if you are in the right pond, because if you have their demographics and everything, then it's easy to say, okay, let me tweak. I want to see what kind of results I got with this ad. Let's see if I change to these keywords or this, what kind of response. So that way you're able to track and tweak your marketing, because there's no such thing as the perfect ad probably the first time. You got to play with it, and then you'll get better at it. You know, you don't become good at marketing the first time. You need somebody to help you or mentor you to show you what to look for. It's a whole learning process. Just like you said, their expertise is somewhere else. It's not in marketing, but you've got to learn that part if you're going to be in business for yourself.
Maybe you were going to say something.
Yeah, just to build on that, it's since we're using the fishing analogies today, it's not just about fishing in the right pond, it's fishing with the right bait.
Oh,
and
yeah.
the thing that you've referred to, you know, is that when it is that JCPenney guy, you know, suit guy behind the desk, and so generic, you know, if you're passionate about, say, the motorcycles, and those are your ideal clients, and that's who you are personally, put that into your ad. That's part of fishing with the right bait, is standing out from the crowd and being the kind of person that your ideal client is looking for, and showing that unique part of yourself that they'll identify with and connect with. And I think of I've looked at hundreds of websites and ads for financial advisors over the last couple of months. And I think I've only really seen 2 that have truly made an effort to do that.
Yeah, they all look alike, don't they?
Oh my gosh, completely.
And they say nothing. And really the guy's relying on the alphabet soup of his credentials, which attracts nobody to anybody. So it's really maddening.
But that's an important thing to note. And some of the people that are listening might think, well, gee, I have all these qualifications. I need to share that with everybody so the clients will be comfortable with me, or they'll be impressed. And it's important to note that you're competing against other people that have those kind of qualifications too. Kind of by definition, they have to have those. So how you stand out is going to be different, as Mindy said. So that's what is going to make a difference in terms of initiating clients. I don't know where we're going to go next, but we probably want to go on to another topic, because I think
you think trying to get 10 all of our 10 points in.
I don't know. I think we maybe hit one more, and then maybe we need to follow up next time.
Let's see how far we can get here. Right. Here's the next thing, and here's point 3. Is I was on a very high level meeting. I think it's been a week ago now, and they had some research that I was just floored by, and it didn't seem to make much of a ripple with the various people talking about it. But here was one stat. They said only 40% of people who are working with a wealth manager or financial advisor are happy with their guy. 40% are thrilled or satisfied with the level of service. And it said that 30% of anybody who's working with somebody right now is thinking about changing and looking for somebody else. Now, there's an interesting third stat you can derive from that, which is 30% are unhappy but aren't thinking about changing just because they're too lazy to go through the pain of separation, right? But I thought that was just a shocking stat, right? And then you overlay that with even high-level people say, well, most of my traffic comes from referrals. Well, if only 40% of your people particularly like you and are happy with you, you're certainly not getting the other 60%, jumping up and down and bird dogging for you at every chance to find people to send your way, right? So the third point here is in maintaining and developing the ongoing client relationships. And Mindy, you had, and this is a guy who's primarily in an insurance, but a conversation you had yesterday, we were cringing on this one, right? But share that. He was saying, awful lot of we really try not to spend much time contacting our clients, so because they just renew their policies every year and keep moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, it was totally, I'm like, okay, that's a strategy. And it was, yeah, I don't really think we have a lot of client attrition because they just renew their policies, and as long as they pay them every month, and they're still a client. And some of them, if we reached out to them, they might think that their insurance person was still another guy in the business who actually died a few years ago and hadn't been part of the company. And I'm like, okay.
So rather than provide good customer service and maybe provide more product, they ignored them just in case.
Yeah, exactly.
Lay low and let
That
those payments
rapport
keep coming
with
through.
your clients is so critical, because the more you can connect with them and the more they feel you care about them. I mean, even going as far as the simple things, birthday cards, or during holidays you're sending them a card. If you find out they're ill or a family member, you send them something. But keeping that rapport, because it's much easier. The only way you're going to grow your business is to grow your client base. So you need more people. And if your numbers, which I wouldn't have been surprised if you'd have said 50 or 60 were unhappy, because unless you're,
well, that was the number. It was 60% are unhappy, 40% are happy.
only 40. I had it the other way around. That's what I was thinking it was, because Most people don't do that. They don't. They're just a number, or they are a client. They don't look at them as a real person that they can relate with and develop that kind of business friendship. That bond with them is so critical. People will move on with somebody else, but it's somebody they like and somebody they can connect with, develop some commonality with, develop that rapport is so critical.
No, absolutely. And it is one of those things that that's always the first thing we recommend. I tell a story. It's not a financial particularly, but I had this dentist that I liked. It was I live, in Denver metro area in Evergreen. But he was down in Cherry Creek. It's a nice area of town. I like the guy, but you go once a year, and it came time, it dawns on me that I had missed my checkup and one thing or another. I couldn't for the life of me remember his name. I hadn't been getting, newsletters, mailings, one thing or another. And then I went and Googled, and in this area of town, there must have been 50 dentists. And I couldn't remember who the hell the guy was, right? And so I ended up not going back to the dentist that I liked, had, decent rapport with one thing or another, because I didn't have the Christmas card, the birthday card, the newsletter. I didn't have the thing on my desk or one thing or another.
Every little anything to contact with them.
Well, a good example of that is back a while ago. It's been a while ago now, but when the pandemic started back then, we had a lot of investment advisors crawl under the desk and not contact their clients.
Oh yeah, when the market crashed.
Yeah, when the market went down, and then it came back up, and that would have been a great opportunity for people to put some more money in the market, not take all their cash out, but instead, these guys were running for the hills, hoping that nobody called.
Yeah. I mean, if you're good, what you were doing is you were sending out the newsletter, you were having the Zoom meeting or the webinar, you were having the 2 or 3 communications out in the mail, and you had somebody scheduling appointments for all your top people so that you could walk them off the cliff, keep them calm and keep them focused on their long-term objectives.
Buy low, sell high. Now's the time.
Exactly. But but what happens here is, if you want referrals and you want additional assets, you want to grow, what your clients are doing with you, want to grow that relationship, it requires a lot of communication, and it requires a high level of rapport. And I find really in almost all businesses, the number one key to how the relation goes long-term is all about rapport and relationship. It's not about all of the other stuff. It's about, do they like you? Do they relate to you? Do they have a good relationship? Are you in front of them, interacting with them, engaged with them all the time, right? So, the question is, do you physically have a newsletter that's showing up in their mailbox every month at least? I mean, I don't want to, rely on email for something like that. Am I doing Zoom meetings in small groups and webinars? Am I sending them, as you mentioned, Jeff, birthday cards and Thanksgiving cards and one thing or another? What am I doing to stay in front of them? But the other thing about that is, and the great advertising great David Ogilvy, he referred to the moving parade of humanity. I think the actual quote is that your market is a moving parade of humanity, is not like a standing army. But what he meant by that is all of the people that you're dealing with, whether it's a herd of people who are your clients, whether it's prospects that perhaps never became clients, or whether it's just the general market that you're talking to, they're going through life changes and perspective changes all the time. So they're going through a divorce, a marriage. They have parents who passed away. They have they got a new job. They lost their job. There's this constant change in what's going on with them. And so if you meet with them once, set things up, and then ignore them, or if you do once a year, once every 6 months, once a quarter, you're missing a lot of those opportunities to be right there front and center when there's those major life changes. Perhaps they inherited $500,000 or $1 million or $3 million. Well, you want to be there to help direct that. Perhaps they have some other need or some other concern that they have. You want to be right there. But the number 3 thing really is, you've got to stay in constant communication, build a high level of rapport, be top of mind with your clients at all time, and find different and unique ways to be constantly dripping on them, constantly communicating with them, and constantly building that relationship. Guys, anything else to add to that?
No, I think that's really well said. That's something that I don't know any of the investment advisors we've talked to in the last 3-4 months that wasn't a big factor in helping them out and making them grow a lot more. And that can almost double your practice right there, is just having the connection in real numbers, double your practice, having the connection, because there's lots of opportunities, keeps people from getting the inheritance of $1 million and then just them going to E-Trade and buying some stock or buying a mutual fund and not getting your advice, which would cost them a lot of money. And it's in their best interest to go through their advisor, but sometimes they don't do that. They just think you're there for their retirement account and not for their day-to-day investments. So it's really important for you to keep the connection. And as you said, be front and center.
Yeah. Well, I had this conversation yesterday morning at 9 a.m. with a team, and they were spending all this time talking about the client list and who the A clients were, the B clients were, and the C clients. And I asked a question which seemed to be kind of dumbfounding to everybody. Is I said, well, how are you defining A, B, and C? Okay. Well, shouldn't we, instead of trying to move the C's over here and focus on the A's, shouldn't we be moving the C's to B's and the B's to A's? And shouldn't we be going through all the C's and figure out which had life event changes, and maybe financially they're now an A plus where they used to be a C? It's like anything else in our society. There's people in the 1%, there's people in the 10%, there's people in the 50% as far as income, but there's massive mobility constantly. There's downward mobility, there's upward mobility, and there's mobility within your client base. There's mobility within your niche. There's mobility within your prospect base, that if you're not constantly thumping and staying out there, you're not going to find. And certainly you're not going to be generating a lot of independent referrals from people if you're not top of mind, and if they're not only have a good relationship with you, but they're thrilled with the service.
And one way to do that is to keep good information on your clients. So when their birthdays are, about their spouse's birthday or their kids, and where they live. Nowadays we've had such disasters this past year, besides the pandemic, these fires that we've had, or the hurricanes. So if you have somebody that's one of your client base that's in the hurricane area, you should be reaching out to them and saying something to them. I hope you're safe. Sorry, you're in that situation, or, whatever is going on, but show some concern and some well wishes, and, that you're thinking about them, that your prayers are with them, those kind of things. Now that goes a long way, because a lot of people see these disasters and they don't realize how many people they actually know that could be clients of theirs or even friends of theirs, that are in those areas that they really should be checking in on to make sure everybody's okay.
Yeah. Well, we spend a lot of time, Mrs. Fields cookies and, Pro Flowers or 800 Flowers, sending flowers, cookies, and one thing or another. And it's something you've got to be constantly listening for and finding reasons. The new baby, grandma's in the hospital, anything in between should be reason to be communicating with them. Well, guys, we're at point 3 out of our 10 stupid things that advisors do. But as a quick recap so far, and we'll have to get to our other points at a different time. But number 1 was thinking that all of the technical education that they got to get where they're at has anything to do with running their actual business, where the purpose of the business is to create and keep a client. And you've got to recognize that you're now and forever in the business of marketing financial services, not just in the technical role of doing the fulfillment of the financial services. In fact, in all businesses that I've run and founded, is frankly contracting out the technical piece of it. Hiring the technical piece of it was always the easiest part. The hardest part was developing the marketing plan and having a consistent flow of marketing, right? The second was creating that avatar client. So know who exactly it is you're targeting, that you're fishing the right pond, but figure out who you relate to, who's going to be the right fit financially, who's going to be the right fit from a standpoint of working together effectively, and pick that right client so you can go target the client that's going to be a good fit for you and target the client that's going to make sure it helps with your financial objectives. The third thing we were talking about there is in ongoing client relationships, which then turns into more assets under management, more lives sold. It turns into
Referrals.
a better referral base. It turns into better retention. So many in this business, they get lulled into the fact that they have a relatively high client retention and miss those numbers of a huge, staggering percentage are dissatisfied or just don't have much of a relationship or an awareness of what you do overall. I had that, guy I was working with forever before I got into this business specifically. Things would come up in one thing or another, and he wasn't top of mind. I didn't even think about it. People would ask me, and it just, or have the conversation. It didn't dawn on me at the time because there wasn't that communication and that constant awareness. So you've got to keep that in mind and focus on that. Well, that's 3 of our 10. On that, we'll call it a day, and we'll come back to the other 7 later. Of course, we'll probably have a few more by then, but really anchor in. You've got to be marketing constantly. You're in the business of marketing financial services. You've got to really laser in and rifle shot, not scatter shot, on who you want. And you've got to make sure that once you've got somebody, you build a big fence around them, that you surround them with warmth, really build a relationship where they're comfortable with you and really excited to talk to you about anything, and your top of mind awareness on an ongoing basis.
Yeah, we're in the people business, so you've got to work with the people.
That's exactly right. Okay, so on that note.
Yeah, that's good.